we have Erin Ambrose here this week. She is our Thriday guest. And this is Sean's like upset. We record on Thursdays, but the show comes out on Friday, Erin. So this is the Thriday podcast. Welcome.
I love that. I feel like I'm in the groove for it now.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Like,
Sean gets like annoyed every time I say Thriday, and he's just like, ugh.
No, what I always say is, something has a really good name when you have to explain it to everybody, who comes on. Totally.
Shots fired already.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Long day. You should have seen what's going on before you jumped on. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this, Erin. It's obviously an exciting and busy time in women's hockey. The PWHPA season just ended. You've been behind the bench with the University of Toronto Varsity Blues. Women's World Championships are coming up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like camp starts next week / this weekend. So lots to get into. Let's start with Women's Worlds, though, because tournament's coming up. You'll be at camp soon. So we're going to scout the enemy, preview the tournament, figure out what we need to know here. But just first, like, what's it going to be like heading into this tournament? It's in the GTA on home soil, back-to-back champions already. You guys have won the last 3 major international gold medals. You won the rivalry series too. Does the pressure change heading into a tournament when you have already won so much and you're not just trying to take the gold from the Americans? You're not trying to win back to back. Like, has it shifted at all in the last year or so?
That's a very good question. And I feel like I'm not 100% sure if I have a concrete answer on that.
Yeah.
Just in the sense of we haven't gotten together yet as a group, but at the same time, throughout this year with our rivalry series, it was like, okay, like we understand that we are kind of fighting to stay on top now. And that was every rivalry series game, even going into Worlds last year in Denmark. But I think the most exciting thing is that it's not just a fight to stay there. It's a fight to get better and improve however we can as a group right now. So it's not so much, okay, we're defending world champions, 2-time world champions, we're defending Olympic gold medalists. It's okay, we're defending what we've created and this culture and this winning attitude, and how can we kind of continue to build on that and grow from there.
Right. I think what's super interesting, the roster was released, I guess, 10 days ago now. You are one of the ones on it. So belated congratulations to you, Erin. Not a surprise at all. But what's so interesting is that over these last 3-4 tournaments, the roster has been quite different based on availability or injuries. We're seeing players kind of come back into the fold at this tournament, with Natalie Spooner coming back after giving birth 3 months ago on December 6th, which is wild. Rebecca Johnson's back. Claire Thompson's back. Danielle Sardachny is going to make her debut. You've got this really interesting mix right now of veterans who've been there, done that. And of course, Marie-Philippe Poulin's on the team again. Yeah. And brand new faces. So what can you kind of tell us about this roster that's been constructed and how your group has kind of evolved over the last few tournaments?
Well, I'm super excited. I think if you look at somebody like Danielle Sardachny, I haven't gotten the chance to play with her. And I didn't really watch the rivalry series games that much, kind of tuned in the first period when they were out west. It was just so late. I couldn't stay up.
Yeah, no.
Obviously a lot of excitement around her. And I think that she brings an element that our young players haven't had recently. I think that obviously you have the Sarah Fillier, who's been this dynamic offensive player. And then you have the Emma Maltese and the Kristen O'Neills that have kind of been thrown into that third, fourth line grind, hard to play against. And I feel like Dax is a little bit of both from what I've seen. She lit up the NCAA this year, which is extremely exciting. And I just can't wait to chirp her for the fact that she looked off Marie-Philippe Poulin on a 2-on-1 in overtime, because that is a bold choice, and I was here for it.
That's incredible. She comes with the confidence.
I mean, this is the 4th best on best tournament you've played in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Like with each one, I'm like, okay, this is when the schedule normalizes, right? Like this is, and it's not. The cycle is just completely off because the Worlds in Denmark were, 9 months.
Through everybody's
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How this last leg of this crazy, it's because of COVID and plenty of reasons, obviously. But what have the last 9 months look like for you? And does it feel like anything's normalized here? Because or are you just used to it being bizarre and screwed up? Because like the timeline for you guys, and and Hailey's talking about the roster attrition and how there's been significant changes. I think I would imagine a lot of that has to do with the amount of like high-end hockey that's been crammed into these last 18 months. So what's that been like? Is it gotten any better, or are you just used to it being shitty, basically, is the question?
It's been a roller coaster. I think that's been a big thing, Sean, is that we you go in, even going as far back as Espoo, Finland. So we're in Finland, in the CWHL folds, and that's when everything kind of hit the fan in a sense.
Yeah.
Because then you go into our first year, the PWHPA Dream Gap tour, and that's a whole lot of inconsistency. And we made the most of what we could have. And then you get smoked with COVID, and then you're trying to adapt to all the COVID regulations. And then it's like, okay, but we got to centralize. So then it's COVID with centralization. And you look at that first Worlds at the beginning of that Olympic cycle in Calgary. And it was like, we just wanted to play. Like, it was like, who cares what month of the year it is? I don't even know what year it is because it's amidst COVID. And that was the best way we could have obviously kicked off that Olympic cycle. And then you get to February and it's like, hey, that's the end of the road. We got our Olympic gold medal. Like, this is fantastic. And then you're like, oh shit, we have Worlds coming up again in 4 months.
Right.
And we've kind of joked like as groups every so often, it's just like there hasn't been an off season for us in a while. So it's exciting to know that this is coming up and like this is the end of our season now. Like this is the light at the end of the tunnel in a sense, and this is what it's all leading towards is this World Championship. And to have it on home soil, I think makes it that much more exciting for all of us.
Have you had a break since COVID? Seriously, like has there been like a like whatever? And I'm not talking about like a long weekend or like a holiday. Like, have you been able to chill for any meaningful amount of time?
I would say
since like centralization before the Calgary tournament, maybe.
We definitely tried to have some downtime last year after the Olympics, and I think Hockey Canada did a good job of understanding that. Okay, like. We're letting the girls relax. It was tough though, because after that Olympics, we had that PWHPA game, the Canada versus US game.
Didn't everyone come from like vacation for that? And everyone was just gassed. The first period was like, ooh,
pretty
they're
much.
tired.
It was just like, it was a really exciting time. And I'm glad that we were able to do it. And I understand why we did it, but it was also like, oh my gosh, we have to play another hockey game. And that sounds so bad of me to say because this is my job and I love doing it. But at the same time, it was like, okay, it's break time. And I think a lot of us had snuck in a trip to Mexico between the Olympics and that game.
That's basically what I was asking. Like, have you been able to sit on the beach in the last?
Yes, in Mexico, and then I've got a big trip planned in April. So April into May, going down to Florida. So that's something that will definitely take those full 2 weeks while I'm away to fully decompress and then ramp back up for the off season.
I think it's interesting though, because when the Penguins, I'm saying the Penguins because you guys are in Pittsburgh, Sean's from Pittsburgh, like the Penguins win a Stanley Cup, they're not immediately doing a showcase event to like sell and market their sport. And that is something like unique to women's hockey is you need to capitalize on the attention that is on you after winning gold. And that means don't take a break, get right back on the ice and go and sell this game to more people. And I think we're seeing that with the way that this schedule has been. It's just been nonstop because I think in talking to players like you and others, like you guys understand what's at stake. You understand the moment that you're in right now, and kind of tying in with the way the PWHPA is trending.
Yep.
It seems like everyone's just in lockstep to say, like, we are trending in the right direction and, like, we are not going to stop this momentum.
Yeah, absolutely, Hailey. And I think that that's something that, as frustrating as it can be as an athlete, I think us as female hockey players really understand it. Do we agree with it every time, or do we want to be doing it? No. But we've said since the beginning that this isn't for us. This is for people to come after us. And that's something that we have to buy into. And even if it's reluctantly doing so, we're making sure that we're doing it to make sure that the game is in a better place when we're all done.
Okay, so let's.
As far as the
sorry,
Sean.
No, you go.
Hold on a second. Okay, so as far as the Dream Gap tour, hold on a second. As far as the Dream Gap tour was concerned, like, you guys you had Pittsburgh, you had some new spots, right? You're in Seattle, you're in DC.
Yep.
There was a Southern California one mixed in there, maybe.
Yep.
Like, is there any? Did any stand out? Like, especially with the new spots? Because I think that's been one of the coolest things about tracking what's gone on with you guys. Honestly, is seeing the exposure of maybe some fresher eyes and some newer audiences to your end of the game.
I think for me, unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Washington. That wasn't a new spot. They were there last year.
Right.
But it still, I think, from what I've heard, has hands down been the best place. The way that the Capitals have bought into helping us out and creating such a professional environment. The girls rave about it. So I was definitely disappointed not to be there. I can't complain about going to Tampa. But Tampa was 3 games in 3 days, and that's tough. So I think, like, it was cool. Like, for me, it was the OHL weekend that really stood out. So we had the games. We played for Team Sonnet. We played in Niagara and we played in Kitchener. And then the other 2 games were in Peterborough and Barrie. To have the amount of fans that we had at all of those games was really, really successful, and I think just promising for us, because it's tough. Like, when you come in and out of cities for one weekend, it is hard to really captivate everybody that you want to and get them into the rink. I know Collingwood was also so excited to have us. Jesse Eldred and I went up there earlier the week before and did some promotional things. And it's those small towns that I think are really successful. And then, like, our trip to Cali was great for our last weekend, but it was just so many different moving parts that it was a little bit harder to, again, focus on the hockey side. But at the same time, to be able to go out there and tap into that, the fan base of female hockey players out there was really exciting. So I think, as crazy as a year as it was, with all the travel and going to different places, we definitely did a great job in leaving our mark kind of wherever we did go.
Our producer Danielle was in.
I was really
Southern
just hoping
California.
I was really just hoping you'd say that Pittsburgh was the best. That's okay.
I really enjoyed Pittsburgh.
That
was like the second weekend.
Right.
That was the second weekend, and it was a blur.
That's unreal.
Sorry.
The schedule. It's track.
Sorry.
I don't even know where I was and where I was.
I seriously I don't mean to, like, quiz you on your schedule, but it's like you look at it. It's just unreal. So my feelings aren't hurt. It's okay.
I hope not.
Producer Danielle was at the Southern California showcase. It's where she's got her PWHPA hat.
I was going to say, she's got some good merch on her right now. Waiting to see the Sonic stuff come out.
Do you guys know who the model was for that? Is there like a Jerry West, like, logo model for the PWHPA?
No,
logo?
I don't think so.
Is it you?
No, definitely not me.
Just tell people it's you.
My pony. I don't wear a pony. I wear a braid.
Yeah, I've never seen you with a ponytail.
No, we got rid of that.
Strange observation for me, but
pretty quickly. Long ago, I used to,
like
but
that.
I switched.
All right. I always just assumed it was like Kendall or Hillary because they always have the.
It's too tall to be Kendall.
Yeah, you're right.
Kendall's a braid girl. Kendall's a braid girl.
Yeah. Okay, let's preview Women's Worlds a little bit more.
Okay.
Because we've talked about Team Canada. But like more specifically with some of the players on the roster, like who outside of the obvious, like we know that Marie-Philippe Poulain's the best player in the world.
Yes, we do.
We know that Sarah Fillier is great, but like who do we need to keep an eye out for? Who do we need to know outside of the usual suspects? Like who should people be more aware of heading into this tournament?
I'm going to go 1 forward and 1 D.
Okay.
Up front, I'm going to go with Laura Stacey.
Love that.
I think Stace is playing the best hockey of her career. She was a pain in the ass to play against all year, and she knows that, and that's the biggest compliment I think you can get from an opposing player. And I just love how she's added such a dimension to her game of being a scoring threat. I think you look at a rivalry series this year and the line of Blair, Turnbull, Emily Clark, and Laura Stacey was consistent throughout them. And that shows you how strong their chemistry is. And I truly think that us having them as a quote unquote third line is a pretty damn good third line. Anybody you'll match it up against. So I think Stacey's going to have a great tournament. She's one of the best PKers in the world. And she's going to have a great tournament. Then on the other side for D, I have a soft spot for her. I know I've mentioned her to you quite a bit, Hailey, but Ella Shelton. I cannot rave about Ella enough. And that's in saying that with usually Claire by my side, which I would never complain about. But Ella Shelton, we're so deep on D that it does push her down a little bit more than I think it could or it should. But I think for Ella, I think she should have been the top defenseman of the PWHPA this year with what she did for Scotiabank. She's a physical presence. She's so sound defensively, and her offensive upside is something that nobody really sees until it's blatantly in your face. And it's not just goals. Like she creates so much that people don't see on the other side of the puck. And I'm really excited for Ella.
I said this to you once when we were talking about Ella Shelton, and I basically said this to Ella in Denmark. I didn't know she had such like a bomb of a shot until
it's a rocket.
It was literally like she scored this insane shot from the point, and she comes out to the weird little tented media area that we had at Worlds in Denmark. It smelled funky. And I was like, have you always been able to shoot like that? Like where did this come from? And she's like, I don't know. I don't do it often. I probably should do it more. And I was like, yeah, maybe.
Threat, like her one-timer threat is insane. Probably one of the best in women's hockey. And like her wrist shot, like she doesn't get a lot of shots blocked, but because she gets it off so quickly. Like you think that the way she shoots a puck that it would take her a while, but she gets it off on and off her stick really quick.
I think I wanted to ask about Blair Turnbull specifically. I think someone I wasn't overly familiar with her game before the Olympics, right? But she's a player who watched during that tournament and then
don't lie, you weren't aware of her until she broke her leg.
I don't like your putting
legends.
No, but like she's one of those players who like once you start watching her, you kind of can't stop, right? Because of that hard to play against element that you talked about and whatever specifically. Is there what do you think's next for her on ice? Like is the role that we've seen her kind of slotted in over the last couple tournaments, like great as it is and fantastically as she plays it? Is there more to give for her? Because I'm just like her game just generally kind of fascinates me because it feels like you stick her on another team, she'd be farther up the lineup, and that's maybe not.
She's been scoring more in the PW this year too.
Yeah,
like I think it's like interesting. She's like this great. I never loved doing the. I'm piggybacking off Sean's question here because Turnbull's like one of my favorite players to watch and talk about. She's like this perfect two-way center that has like a really almost underappreciated offensive ability. And like if it was the NHL, like Blair Turnbull's like the perfect third line center that you get for like a cup contender.
Exactly.
You know, she's like the Michael Backlund, or she's like the, you know, the juice that gets the Goudreau, Coleman, Yanni Gourde line going or something. Like, not like she doesn't need an NHL equivalent, but like she's just such an interesting player with like more offense that we're seeing right now, which I think is what, to piggyback off Sean, is like that next step for her, right?
Yeah. Like, I think if you look at the PWHPA, like that's why it's so great what we do, because people get elevated into roles that they don't necessarily have on their respective national teams. So you have the Blair Turnbulls who you're seeing this offensive upside, and it's like, that wasn't never not there. It's just, you have Marie-Philippe Poulin and Sarah Fillier at center.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, it's not a knock against Blair. It's just the strength of our centers. And I think you also look at it like Brianne Jenner used to be a center too. Like, our center depth is incredible. And obviously Jenny's had so much success on the wing with Pooh, and that's fantastic. But it's just, Blair is so tough to play against. And Blair is every coach's dream. Blair is hard nosed. She does everything the right way. As a D, like, I know I'm going back to get a puck and I have Blair support all the time in the defensive zone. And it's like, it makes my job so much easier. And then like, that's not even touching on how great she is in the room and what she does for us. Like, yes, you don't want to compare to the NHL, but like Blair Turnbull is the player that every GM would go after.
Yeah.
Trade deadline. Because without her, you don't have success. And that's truthfully what it is. As a leader, as the center that she is, like you look at the Olympics last year, and obviously everybody like individually broke all these records, which was great. But it was like that third line is what created, again, third line, quote unquote, because the depth is insane. But like, that's what allows us to have the success that we do, because it alleviates the stress on Pooh and Fillier with matchups or what have you. And I mean, I don't know. I love Pooh and I love Philly, but Blair's right up there for who I want to trust in any situation as a center on the ice.
Yeah.
You know what I think would be really cool if maybe there was, if Blair Turnbull had a team where she'd be the first line center on, maybe if there were a league where there were like 6 teams or 8 teams, and she was like, and she was say the first line center. I think that'll be pretty cool. Right? 'Cause that is the cool part about some of the Dream Gap stuff is like, you see the talent spread out a little bit more, and you're like, oh, okay, this seems like, you know, if and when that becomes permanent, you know, she's, you know, first round pick, you know, it's like
without a doubt,
pillar of a roster kind of player. Yeah.
Let's set the scene. It's Blair Turnbull. She's wearing number 87, and she's the first line center for the women's Pittsburgh Penguins.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, whatever.
She loves Sidney Crosby, though, right?
Yeah, it's she does. She does.
Nova Scotia girl.
Yeah,
it just makes sense. But we won't ask you about that. Let's scout the enemy a little bit, though, Erin.
Yep.
I stop with the scout the enemy. That's not. They're not the enemy. I'm American. We're not scout.
I can't scout the Americans. They don't have to do that.
I know.
Oh God,
they haven't picked it yet.
I keep
can't scout them.
Is there somebody who you expect to see on that roster that, like, how much do you pay attention to the way things are going with that group before it's actually announced? Is it at all, like, or
no.
are you like doing like projections on your end or
no? Like, I won't pay attention until their roster's named.
Yeah.
And that's me personally. I've always been somebody, like, before every game in college, I would go in to coach's room and I'd see their lineups and I would know which way everybody shoots, like that kind of stuff. I'll start to see. And their lines, like, I always will look at their lines and see what kind of matchups there are. And but until that team's named, no.
Okay. One thing
that's a good answer.
Yeah. Sean's got off scot-free here.
It's a trap question with a really good answer. Damn.
Yeah. Give us the tea. Who do you hate the most on Team USA? Just kidding. But like, the landscape of this tournament's really interesting, though, because Finland's in Group B, Japan's moved up to Group A because they won that placement game at the last Women's World Championships. Like France is going to be there, Sweden, Hungary. I don't have all of Group B off the top of my head, but like it's really interesting because everyone likes to talk about how it's a 2-horse race with Canada and the US. And it is true. Like objectively, you guys are the top 2 teams in the world. But like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like there is legitimate real growth there. Yeah. Like the fact that you guys have different teams in Group A and you have new teams coming into this top tier of the tournament, like what does that say about the growth of the game right now?
I think it's really exciting. I also think that somebody like Sweden is not far off. I think you look at how their U18s did, and they're going in the right direction. I think they made a lot of changes within their federation, which were needed. So I think it's only a matter of time until they're right there in Group A. Then you look at Finland, and obviously that was a lot of disappointment for them last year. And I think that they've showed throughout their Euro Cups this year, like they haven't lost a game in any of their Euro Cup challenges or whatever they call. I think it.
Yeah, they're like European tournaments.
Yeah. Over 16 games, and they haven't lost a game, and that's against Czechia, that's against Sweden, that's against Germany, Swiss, like those teams that they technically have fallen below. So I think it's a matter of time before they're right back up there. Czechia is exciting. I think Czechia's got a lot of young blood, and you saw their excitement last year after winning a bronze medal, which was great for them and great for their federation. And in saying this, like this is all really good stuff. And we are super excited as female hockey players that this is happening. Yeah. But as a member of Team Canada, it's like, okay, I'm going to do what I need to do. We are going to do what we need to do to keep making sure that gap does not shrink. Yeah. We're on top and we need to keep pushing the envelope and we need to keep upgrading ourselves. And it's up to them to figure out a way to catch up.
Okay, I think that's good for World Championships because, again, there aren't that many rosters named. Like, teams still, like, I think the Team USA camp is starting soon, but their roster's not going to be named yet.
I totally forgot that the American roster wasn't even out yet, honestly.
Yeah, they're actually doing, like, a selection camp.
I know. I just forgot that. I forgot the date on it.
So did I. You've been coaching this year, though, Erin, with University of Toronto. So let's kind of transition to that. On the bench with Vicky Sanahara, which is like pretty cool. Obviously, a Canadian women's hockey legend in and of itself. She was a coach of the year this year too, I believe. Like, what's
3 years in a row?
That's amazing. Yeah. What's this experience been like for you, and what made you want to get into coaching at the U Sport level?
So I previously had actually coached at the University of Concordia.
Right.
And so with Caro and Julie, which were great years for me when I was in Montreal. And honestly, Vicky has been asking me to kind of do it the last couple of years, and I just haven't been able to kind of give as much to it as I wanted to before committing. And this year it worked out, and I'm beyond grateful that it did. They brought so much joy to my life. I enjoyed every aspect of it, and getting to be there for nationals meant a lot. Unfortunately, I missed when they won the Macaw Cup. So our OUAs, I wasn't there for that. I was in California, but I also got Noxie's. Also, Liz Knox is also on the bench. So we had a great coaching staff. And like you said, Vicky is a legend. And I think just to be around her, not only for coaching and learning more things about the ins and outs of coaching, but just to hear her speak of her time in the program, and it helps me self-reflect a little bit too on what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing within my playing career. And I don't know if I have many more people that are more important than Vicky Sanahara in my corner. And that's pretty special to say. If 6-year-old Erin knew that, she'd be over the moon. So
it's such a rare thing to have a player who's still at the highest level coaching a high level team like in their own right. So are there things that you came out of this season that maybe you can use on ice yourself? Like how did the coaching experience help you improve as a player? Like, are there things that you bring from that experience to the next one?
Yeah. And I think, Sean, like with that, that's why I fell in love with coaching when I started at Concordia, was because I started to see things in a different light. And for me as a player, I'm so methodical. I'm so calculated. And then getting to see the coaching side of it, it validates some of it in a sense, not all of it, but some of the things I understand. And I also think that that's why I love coaching so much, is because I'm so meticulous about what I do,
Mhm.
that it's like, to me, it's second nature, but to somebody else, it might not be that black and white for them to be able to see. So I think
Mhm.
it allows me to see different things in different views. And that's something that's also really important for me as a player, is I see things one way, but I might not be able to relate how Claire might see them. So getting to know those kinds of different scenarios, and sometimes I pick it up while coaching, sometimes I pick it up while on the bench playing. And those two things help me, I think, just be a better player, and also just be a better person in communicating and better teammate.
And is that something that you want to continue to pursue, or like, are you interested in coaching? Like in this kind of, obviously you're still
Yeah.
playing in your prime, so we're not in this like life after your playing career phase yet, but like, do you see yourself behind a bench? Do you want to do like hockey operations? I know that you're someone who's like very in tap with the NHL. Like you've texted me before. I think I tweeted out my like, it was my heart ballot or it was my Norris ballot once.
And I
And
wasn't happy about it.
yeah, you had lots to say. Like you're very into like the NHL, very analytical in the way that you think of the game. So is that something that you want to pursue, like, you know, eventually when you're done playing?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think one of the best things right now is I have the ability to continue to play and continue on my career, but also stay in touch with what I could be doing after hockey. And I know a lot of people don't have those same abilities, and I'm very thankful for that. But by no means am I wishing away the last however many years of my career. But at the same time,
Hmm.
this is something I love and I'm very passionate about. So whether it be coaching behind the bench or management, there's definitely a lot of draw for me staying within the game in some sense.
Can you tell me who to vote for the Norris? Because I haven't really decided on anything yet. Can you
Yeah,
help me with this?
I can send you a couple messages, but
Okay, sweet,
I'm not gonna
sweet.
vocalize.
Yeah, no, we don't have to talk
No
about here
hot takes
that
right
here.
now.
I just want to know. I just want to know that I can fall back on some help in
Absolutely.
like April.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I felt good. I voted for Roman Yossi last year, not Cale Makar. And apparently that was like a spicy thing, even though Roman Yossi got more first place votes than Cale Makar. Anyways, what do we think about the Leafs this year, Erin? Big Leafs fan. I've seen you at games. Well, I haven't seen you at games because I don't.
I'm just always at games. Yeah.
I just see that you're always at games. They've got a big game tonight against the Florida Panthers. Panthers are pushing for, I mean, they're in a playoff spot now. Leafs have kind of looked just okay after the trade
Mid.
deadline.
Leafs have looked mid.
How are we feeling?
I feel good. I think one of the biggest things is like even just relating it to what I've gone through and different rivalry series and different rosters is people need to find their places. Coaches need to switch things up to find the best places for their players. And I think one of the best things is that the Leafs are in a position right now that they have the ability to try a lot of different things out. Um, it's not about who wins game number 82. So why force that right now? I think take the time that you need to in order to prepare yourself the best heading into playoffs. And that might be different than what the Boston Bruins are doing kind of leading into things. So I think with that, like, I love what the Leafs added. I think a player like Jake McCabe, I think a player like Luke Shen, like those defensive ads were huge.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sandin had run his course in being with the Leafs in the sense of where was his spot really going to be? Was he really going to take over Morgan Riley? No. Okay, so let's move on and let's find something more beneficial for us on the back end, which is what I think they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think kind of going back to what I just said about finding people or finding the best spots for people, I think that's where they're at with their forwards right now. Just trying to find who works best with who. I think a big thing right now is O'Reilly's out. So we're also trying to find things, but also knowing that he's going to slot right back in this situation. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of question marks, I think, but at the same time, I don't think I've liked a playoff roster more than I do this year for the Leafs. And who knows? Let's just get to that friggin' first round.
Well, Sandin's he's been great with the Caps too.
Not defensively though. No.
Well,
he's been on the ice for like 16, 17. Like he's been on the ice for like several goals against.
Point being, it just seems like that seems like a beneficial trade for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Like I think, like you said, that kind of had run its course. Is there like a point though?
Sorry, go.
Yeah. Oh no. Please.
I was just gonna say you got a younger player in Gustafsson, you got a cheaper player in Gustafsson, pretty similar skill set, and you were able to also get a pick back. So, like I said, he's not running the top power. He's not running the number one power play in Toronto. He goes over and runs the number one power play in Washington, and he's obviously going to get his points there. Like, I always say it with me, like, the reason I'm productive and I have point production is because I run a power play with Marie-Philippe Poulin, Brand, Sarah Nurse, Sarah Philly. Like,
who do you pass to on PVY?
Right? So it's like, okay, like, people are going to, when you put people in positions to succeed, they're going to succeed. But if they don't get into that same spot, then it's no different in women's hockey than it is in men's hockey. Like, so. Is there
a point during the regular season that you, Erin Ambrose, whether you're speaking as a national team member or a Leafs fan, is there a point in these next 10 games where it's like they've crossed that threshold to where you're like, all right, I'm officially concerned about what's going to happen in the first round, or is it just, whatever, keep tinkering until the playoffs begin?
For me, Erin Ambrose as a general, because I look at it, I always look at hockey the same, whether it's my own, I'm watching video of my own, whether I'm watching U of T, whether I'm watching a Leafs game, I'm always watching it as the hockey player that I am. I wouldn't say there's concern. Like, we talk about it in my family all the time. Like, I just keep going back to the Leafs and they keep hurting me. Like, it's the worst thing in the world, but I'm not going to not invest in them. Like,
You're loyal.
I am a loyal Leafs fan, and I don't care if they go on a 10-game losing streak heading into playoffs if they would win that first round.
Yeah.
Whereas they could go on a 10-game winning streak and lose in the first round. Like, great. I feel good at the end of game 82, but like, what happens in the playoffs? Like, it really doesn't matter. And I think it's the same thing when I look at myself, like, and any team I've personally been on. Like, you can feel great and you can think like, hey, we're rolling. And then like something just hits you square in the face. And it's like that halted pretty quickly. Like, until you win that last game, is it really successful? Doesn't matter how you get there.
Yeah. I think what the Leafs could really benefit from in the first round is like an Anne-Renee Desbiens
type performance. Or actually Anne-Renee Desbiens.
Just her.
Or Nick,
just her.
Is she available?
Anne would hop on that in a second.
21 shutouts for an NCAA record. More than any man or woman in that.
NCAA record,
not women's hockey record. There was someone, I forget who he played for, like some North Dakota team.
I think
it was Mankato, yeah. And there was like a big deal because he had like 16 shutouts or something in one season. And everyone's like, it's a record. She's just like, I had 21. And I was just like, yeah, I like her. Like, that's great. So, we've had you for like over 30 minutes now. Oh, it's been 40. This has been great. Final question for you though, Erin, because this is something that Sean and I have talked about a lot on this show. And like, we obviously think it's important to continue to discuss what's going on in the NHL with Pride Nights. And we think it's important to have like a diversity of voices talking about this subject. It's not just us. And sometimes we feel like we're just saying the same shit over and over again every time something new happens with this in the league. You've used your platform on social media to talk about this before. When Ivan Provorov decided not to participate in the Pride Night warm up, like, do you have a thought on what's been going on in the NHL right now in regards to like teams and players not wearing Pride jerseys?
Do I have a thought? No, I have a lot of thoughts.
Let her rip, please.
As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed in the lack of, I think, accountability that the NHL is taking to protect people from within my community. And I'm not saying that selfishly. I'm saying that because I will bet my life that there are members of my community within the NHL. And I do not believe that the NHL is doing a good enough job to make that a safe environment for those players. I also want to touch on Brian Burke's comments because I think he talked about how he touched on just the disappointment that he had, because I think what really resonated with me is that when he said a player wearing, and this is a quote, a player wearing Pride colors or tape isn't endorsing a set of values or enlisting in cause. He is saying you are welcome here, and you are in every single NHL building, end quote. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that the community that I am proud to be a part of is not saying if you wear a Pride sweater, you're gay.
Right.
The community that I am a part of is saying you're wearing a Pride sweater, so you're welcome. Whether my religion believes in that, whether my culture in general, like it's not so much like, hey, we're throwing this down your throat. We're just trying to create a safer environment for people that are part of the LGBTQ plus community. And that's the hardest thing for me. Is it started out with Provorov as one player, and now how many teams have backed out of their Pride nights?
Yeah.
And sometimes I see the argument of, okay, well, the military night or the St. Patrick's Day jerseys, like those kind of jerseys. And I'm like, I don't want to compare apples to oranges, because I don't think it is. And that's not fair to do to anybody that served in the military, or the St. Patrick, like, but you know what I mean? Right. Like, that's not, or the Indigenous community, like, we're not comparing those things, because it is comparing apples to oranges. It's just like, but at the same time, like, okay, we have these other causes that we want to celebrate and acknowledge. And that's what Pride nights are for, is celebrating and acknowledging those things. So no, I don't think it's that different than an Indigenous sweater. No, I don't think it's that different than a military sweater. I think these are important things that all should be acknowledged, whether you believe that people should go to war or not. Okay, we still support and respect the people that have protected our country and put their lives on the line. So it's no different in that sense. So I think it's a long-winded answer, but there's just a lot of frustration and disappointment. And I do hope that some sort of change is taken. And then secondary, the athlete in me, I've never seen in any sport, whether it be major league or not, that allows a player to play in a game that didn't warm up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's obviously not the important thing, but like, I just couldn't ever fathom being like, I ain't going out for warm up, but I'll be starting the game.
That's one of those factors too that's in play with the way the whole thing, especially with the way it's been framed, I guess. I mean, and this is Gary Bettman talk. Like, I was at the GM meetings, a couple weeks ago, and I asked him, like, okay, you said that you framed Ivan Provorov as an issue of individual choice, right? Like the people had to respect his individual choice. And in the meantime, we're in the process. We're recording this on Thursday. We had another team bail on its Pride Night last night. We had James Reimer over the weekend. There certainly the fear is that there's going to be more coming up because plenty of teams have stuff scheduled for the next 10 days. It's just disheartening and infuriating, honestly, that the same framework that was applied to Ivan Provorov, whether it's by Gary Bettman or anybody who's defending him, whatever, you got to respect his individual choice. You have guys that are on these teams that have spoken about like how great it'll be to support, be able to wear a Pride jersey, and they're being denied that level of individual choice too. So it's not even a question. It's just like, this is the way things are. It seems like it's getting worse. Like the league response has made things worse, and it's not over yet. That's the super shitty part, is that there's a lot of teams with these still on their calendars, and it's like emboldened the homophobic, or cowardly elements like in the front offices and within franchises here. It's really depressing. So that's not even a question. It's just us talking, I suppose.
At least the Sharks still wore their jerseys, right? Like James Reimer made his choice, and then everyone else on San Jose did too. And they chose to make people feel welcome in that building. And I think I just wish, to agree with what Sean's saying, I wish more teams would if there's guys in the Blackhawks who don't want to wear it, fine, don't.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing to me, I think, is like they're like, oh, we're still going to celebrate our Pride Night. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, now you're just doing it to say you did it. Whereas, like, it's just
true, like rain. It's like rain on the parade stuff. Truly, like, how do you have like a successful? I know in every team who has something like this happens wants to say like, oh, we did this and that, and here's the people we had involved, and here's the activations we had, and whatever. But it's like that ceases to matter whenever a player on the team swerves as abruptly and kind of grossly as we've seen from these guys.
So you have the right to your personal choices and beliefs, 100%. So then what makes your right more important that you get to cancel the night that I believe in?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of hypocrisy at the highest levels of the league on this one.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying all that, Erin.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a great chat. Covered a lot. We stole all of your time.
It's okay.
And we'll do it literally anytime you want to come on.
Well, thank you guys.
Are you going to any more Leafs games? That's the question.
It'll be on hold. There? It'll be on hold until April 17th.
Right.
Great.
Women's Worlds.
Second round, maybe? We go to second round Leafs games. We'll see if that happens. Okay, there we go.
Fun. Well, I'll see you at camp.
I apologize that it took a little while to occur, but thank you for having me.